Hi everyone, I wanted to make this quick video for you to just share some information that we've been talking about without taking too much of your time up. I know it's important for you to be working together as teams and thinking about your planning, but I thought this might be an efficient way to kind of share just general information so that everybody feels in the loop. So we're going to talk just quickly about virtual literacy. Like, what is this really supposed to look like in a virtual space? How is it the same? How is it different? And so I want to make sure that you feel comfortable navigating this. So we're going to take a look at just teaching in general, the art and the science of teaching before we even bring literacy into this, making sure that regardless of where the instruction happens, that we are following a balanced approach because we know that that's grounded in best practice and research-based support. A little bit about assessments and then how our reading benchmarks play into this new virtual world and trying to navigate student performance. As I said earlier, teaching really is an art and a science, and based on that, we have to kind of try to navigate our practices while we make room for both of those things. So when I think about teaching as an art, this quote always comes to mind. It says, "I've come to a frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element in the classroom. It's my personal approach that creates the climate. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess a tremendous amount of power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated, and a child humanized or dehumanized." I don't know, that quote always stands out to me, and it's just a reminder that, we can look at all of the methods and resources in the world, but when it comes down to it, the most critical element that impacts student success is the teacher. It's not a socioeconomic status. It's not the number of students in the room. It's the quality of the teacher. And so the things that you do are so appreciated. And while we will also talk about the science, which we know our curriculum and our practices and our resources that we implement, that's only ever part of the equation. And so what you do is so important, and who you are and what you bring to your classroom. And the goal is to always make room for that. And of course, the science of teaching, which are the things that, we talk about curricularly. So even in a virtual model, it's important that we try to figure out a balanced approach to literacy. And I just added this icon because I think that balance is really the key to everything. We were just talking in a second grade classroom today about how when you kind of maintain balance, you're never too far from the new trends that come sweeping in or the new pedagogy that gets highly recommended by whatever guru in the field. And balanced literacy is still the number one approach to teaching literacy, although it's controversial and lots of people have different opinions on that. And I think what's important to remember when we use the word balanced literacy, that it's balanced because it takes on two approaches. So there is a structured literacy approach, that phonics-based approach that we use in word study. And so we have to try to continue to figure out how to present those small parts of language to students in the K2 setting in a multisensory fashion. That's going to look different, but we explored some videos last year about how we could possibly do things like that. But our mini lessons are also structured. They're direct, they're focused, they're driven by a specific skill or standard, and we're really guiding the students' thinking. The other kind of spectrum of this balanced literacy approach is our opportunity to immerse students in literacy, because we know that they learn that way as well. They learn how to read by being a reader, and they learn how to write by being a writer. Of course, we have to build in structured skill-based practice, but we also have to give them the opportunities to take on those qualities. And so that's where the reading and writing workshop comes into play and is so important. And so we still, even in a virtual model, want to make sure that we have these parts, because they really are what moves students forward as readers and writers. They might look a little different, but if we are addressing and achieving the implementation of these components, we know we're going to be on the right page. And these components in that balanced literacy model are things that, again, we'll focus and we'll, attempt to implement even in, regardless of whether we go to hybrid or whether we stay in virtual for however long. These are still components that we know help students move forward and are, grounded in sound practice. When we look at word study, it's so important at the K2 level, so we really need to work that in daily in some way. And that might extend our lesson just a bit. It doesn't have to be long and drawn out, but it should be focused and explicit with maybe room for some phonemic awareness, brought into that at the beginning of a lesson as a quick review. In grades 3 through 5, obviously it doesn't need to happen daily. So we look at weekly or, a few times a week. A lot of the skills, once students kind of move out of that early elementary phase, a lot of the skills that they begin to pick up are from reading and writing. So they pick up spelling patterns by reading regularly. They pick up writing strategies, again, by reading regularly. They see those techniques utilized. So that direct, explicit instruction isn't as necessary as we get into these intermediate grades, but we still want to make sure that it's there for them and that we carve out time. And then, of course, you can implement word study structures, whether it's vocabulary or phonics or phonemic awareness activities in small group as needed by students. Obviously, we have the mini lessons. So what we learned through taking a lot of different courses over the summer, webinars and so on, is that it's even more important for the mini lesson to be short and focused when we're working online. There are even more distractions in most cases for students at home. Obviously, we're going to use our scope and sequence, and I would highly suggest that we don't try to teach reading and writing on the same day. So maybe on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday are your reading days. If you are at the lower elementary level, you're starting with some word study practice and moving into a reading lesson. Maybe Tuesday and Thursday are your writing days. You're starting with a word study lesson or, activity, some type of practice, and then moving into writing. So just based on our circumstances and the time we have, trying to squeeze both of those lessons into one sitting of language arts is not recommended. Obviously, we have to give kids a chance to practice. It's recommended really to keep it simple. How can they demonstrate the skill? Is it a reading response? Is it a graphic organizer? Is it an oral response? And then if we can provide choice for students, they can show us this way or that way. That differentiation is obviously going to help kids. We can give them choice in the text that they select, when we can also give them grade level texts where we use repeated reading so that students can have exposure to text in a mini lesson, and then they go back and reread, which is great for fluency. They can reread a passage to apply and focus on a skill after having the support of the teacher. We're looking at quality versus quantity. There's an interesting new guidelines that came out from the American Academy of Pediatrics with regard to screen time. It used to be that there were 2-hour regulations, and now they're looking at quality versus quantity. So what are they doing on the screen? What are they doing as their practice, and is it worthwhile, as opposed to just did they get 10 minutes of practice? For small group instruction, obviously we're basing it off our students' needs, and this is where we can kind of fill in those gaps or accelerate students if they're ready to move on and be challenged, as we know. We're going to continue to implement assessments even on an online platform, so we'll have some tools that I think will help prepare us for that. It's really important that you look at the reading benchmarks on the team drive and just be aware of where students should be at different points in the year. The benchmarks haven't changed, so while we don't know where our students will be when they come in, how far behind or right on grade level as we might find them, the reading benchmarks haven't changed. So, we'll use different approaches to try to meet the needs of our students, we have to be really careful that we don't overload the intervention system by over recommending students who maybe just need, access to quality instruction as opposed to, having a deficit in reading. So we're going to have to really try to weed those students out, and, we'll continue to discuss and support that. And then lastly, in the virtual model, I think maybe the biggest challenge and maybe the most important is the literacy environment that we create for them. So making sure that there's a space where literacy is shared and celebrated. In the classroom, we're so used to creating physical spaces with the carpets and, word walls where, again, they're immersed in language rich spaces. And what could we do in a virtual environment that would support that? What kind of tools could we use to try to continue to promote and have them feel that sense of, celebration for literacy? And I think that'll be a challenge. I think all of it will be a challenge. And, we're here for one another, and these are the things we get to share and, kind of work through together, because no one person has any of these answers, trust me. And that's what I want to leave you with, is that there are so many unknowns, but one thing we do know is we're teachers, and we're good teachers. We're great teachers, as a matter of fact. And we know how to move our students forward and help them get results. And we know how to take care of our students as people first. And so while there's so many things that are unknown and so many things that are unreliable right now, my greatest recommendation is to go back to that. Keep using your gut instinct, respond as you see fit based on what you know is best for kids. That'll never change. And we're all here for one another. So we'll work through things as we move forward. But I just wanted to make sure we all had some of the same information. And I hope this helped keep it kind of short and sweet so that we didn't need another meeting. Anyway, I'm here for you, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.